Shalom, I'm Rabbi Jonathan Ginsburg of the Ezra Habanim Niles Township Jewish Congregation, Skokie, Illinois. This video is about Jewish marriage. So what is required for Jewish marriage? First of all, two Jews have to be eligible to be married. For traditional Judaism, that is conservative and Orthodox rabbis, they have to be born of a Jewish mother or convert to Judaism. In the case of some Reform and Reconstructionist rabbis, if either parent is Jewish, they were raised Jewishly, they're considered Jewish. Now, once that's true, and also they have to be free to marry. There's another video I have on Jewish divorce, and I recommend you see that. If you've been married before, that may complicate the question of Jewish marriage. You have to be free and not married to anybody else. So for traditional Judaism, that means if you were married to a Jew before, besides having a secular divorce, you need to have a Jewish divorce called a get. Okay, so if you're free to marry, mazel tov. What you do, first you'll need a Huppah, which is a canopy of some kind. Usually held on 4 poles. It can be a talus or some material. You also need 2 kiddush cups. You need to have at least a ring for the bride, but nowadays every marriage I do has a ring for both. You need a Ketubah. Now I'll give you a couple of examples. The Ketubah is a document that's thousands of years old, and it basically is an alimony settlement. In ancient times, to protect the woman, the man had to promise that if they should get divorced, she was entitled to a certain amount of money. Today, since the state law supersedes the civil law, the Jewish law here of the get and of the Ketubah, we use it for mostly nostalgic purposes as a legal binding feeling between the two. Here's an example of one of the standard kind of conservative Ketubot, and it has 3 sections: English, Hebrew, which are both kind of spiritual vows between the two, and the middle is an ancient Aramaic, which has the traditional language. At the bottom of this one, and we recommend that you do this, there is something called the Lieberman Clause, which basically says that you both agree if the marriage should ever be ended civilly, you agree to end it Jewishly. That's to avoid any problems of the husband down the road being reluctant, and that's explained more in my YouTube video on divorce. Besides this one, which I give to couples free, you're prepared, if you want, to engage an artist to do one. I'll show you an example here of one that was a nice lithograph somebody had, and then it was actually done with calligraphy, filled in with their names, and there's all kinds of nice ways to do it. Now, the ceremony itself. Well, there's some pre-ceremony things to take care of. One is the signing of the state license. One is the signing of the Jewish license. You need Jewish witnesses who know how to write their names in Hebrew. Orthodox rabbis require them to be observant Jews. We also have something called bedekin, a nice prayer of the groom and the bride to each other to make sure it's the right bride and groom, and a moment for them to look at each other. Also, if there's a deceased parent, or if in my case I do deceased grandparents too, we offer an Almalei Rachamim memorial prayer. Then they walk down the aisle, and there's really no Jewish rules about walking down the aisle. We don't use certain music like Here Comes the Bride. The bride is always last, and otherwise it really doesn't matter how they come down. They stand under the chuppah, and the husband, if my back is to the ark as it is now, the groom would be on my right and the bride on my left. And sometimes in the Eastern European tradition, the bride would walk around the groom 7 times, or nowadays, sometimes they walk around each other 3 times, and once they do a do-si-do. We welcome them in Hebrew and English with certain language. We lift up the first cup of wine, and we chant the blessing for betrothal, basically. Then they exchange rings. And what they do is that the groom gives the bride a ring, puts it on her right hand, index finger, just for this ceremony, and says, in Hebrew, with this ring I marry you according to the law of Moses and the people of Israel, and puts it on her finger. Then they're married. And then oftentimes she'll say the same thing but changing the grammar, or some rabbis don't like it for her to say the exact same thing, so they'll come up with some other phrase for her to say. After the ring ceremony, we read the Ketubah. Now, a lot of rabbis don't read the whole thing because it's 10 minutes of boring Aramaic. Orthodox rabbis, I think, tend to read the whole thing. And somewhere in there, the rabbi usually will offer a little speech about the couple and about Jewish marriage and about something significant of the day. Following the recitation of the Ketubah, then we move to the second cup, which are based on the 7 wedding blessings. 7 blessings thanking God for enabling us to reach all this moment. And oftentimes the rabbi or cantor will chant them, If you want family to participate, that's often a good place where they can do some of the blessings. Following that, the rabbi will do the priestly benediction over the couple, will pronounce them husband and wife, will put a glass down, the groom will step on the glass, and of course after the Sheva Brachot, before this, you drink the second cup of wine. In both cases, the groom and the bride get wine to drink, or grape juice if they don't drink wine. Now the breaking of the glass as a symbol has many different meanings. It started out with a rabbi in the Middle Ages throwing a glass against the wall because people were making too much noise. And then later on it got to be in memory of the destruction of the temple. But we often say that just as life is fragile and marriage is fragile, you've got to be very attentive to the marriage. At the same time, everyone knows this signifies the great moment of joy of creating a new family. And then after the wedding and after the breaking of the glass, the couple and the party recedes, and the couple then has to go be by themselves for a while. That's called yichud, and you often have two guards to go stand outside the door with them, and that concludes the Jewish aspects of the wedding. If they're a religious family, then at the Seudat Mitzvah dinner to follow, they would often do the Sheva Brachot again. And Orthodox couples actually don't go on honeymoons. They spend the week going from house to house for lunch and dinner, greeting friends and having more parties with these Sheva Brachot. But that sends you on your way Jewishly to a Jewish marriage life together. For more details and explanations, consult your rabbi.